failed at making a short film. But I made another one. In December of 2022, I had an idea. This idea was for a movie about a girl who rejects a guy, but the guy turns out to be a cult member, and his entire cult attacks her and she has to survive. This was the basic premise of what I wanted to write. In December 2023, I started writing it. Eventually, the story took shape in a script I called Fraternizing. This story followed a girl who, after scrolling on dating sites for hours, decides to go on an impromptu date with a guy. She arrives at his house and realizes it's a frat house. The house is flooded with guys who are packing up and getting ready to leave. They leave her alone with the guy, and he's super uninteresting. All he does is talk about himself, how much he loves baseball, and how his dream is to be in MLB. After he makes a not so smooth move on her, she rejects him. She decides not to sleep with him and leaves the house. For this, the guy, the leader of the cult, orders his lackeys to follow her home. They attack her with baseball bats and try to kidnap her. The whole baseball bat thing was just a joke about them being super obsessed with baseball. Not really any deeper meaning to it. She fights them off as best as she can. She takes a few out, but they eventually get the upper hand and they chloroform her and kidnap her. The rest of the story takes place in the frat house and ends up being a horror thriller about her escaping. The script was finished in February 2023. For over a year, the story was revised, tweaked, and improved. I started looking for friends to cast, places to film, and things I needed to test out. This was, by far, my most ambitious project yet. Every other project I had worked on at this point was 1 to 2 actors in some friend's house, and you film for a couple days. But this was different. I wanted it to be different. I wanted to go ambitious and have as many people as I wanted and as many locations as I wanted. And I wanted it to be a full, fleshed out story. There were 5 different locations, 13 characters, and a whole bunch of VFX I had to do. In May of 2023, I started doing some VFX tests with my girlfriend Kat. Small things to refresh my knowledge on how to do gunshot effects and stuff like that. Stuff that I did a ton of as a kid, but that's a whole different story. These tests were actually done during my production of my Star Wars fan film, which also took a long time, but we eventually released it in January of 2024. Then finally, in September of 2024, I had a bare bones cast filled with friends and coworkers. I didn't have all 13 characters cast yet, but I would figure that out later. We started with the very basics. Just me, my camera, and my friend, Alex. Alex was perfect for the role of our main character, Matilda. She had some acting experience with her Ren Fair stuff and D&D, and just overall, she's just a great person to work with. We filmed the majority of the movie at her and her husband's place, just because it had so much personality and it was a great backdrop and it was convenient to have as well. We filmed a ton of things that day for just her character. Things like her texting on her phone or swiping on the dating site and on a phone call where we just needed to record audio for the other side. Then only a few days later, we scheduled to come back there and film 4 different fight scenes. My buddy Austin arrived early to help choreograph all the fight scenes. We then filled in 2 of the actors when they got there, and we filmed 3 fight scenes. The reason we filmed 3 was because another actor of mine got sick the same day, so we couldn't film his scene. But that was fine. We adapted and we implemented things from the 3rd and 4th fight together to just create a more entertaining fight. And then after that, the next scene where she gets chloroformed kidnapped would take place in a different room, so we didn't have to film that, even though we needed 3 other actors for that. That second day of filming was incredibly hard, and we had to adapt to so many different things, but it was so fun. We filmed the second fight first. This was because we only had Austin for the beginning of filming. He had, I think, a concert to go to. And then, luckily, right before he had to leave, the other 2 actors showed up, and we were able to film the connected tissue scenes between fight number 1 and fight number 2. Which, obviously, is very important because there was a dark comedic scene where Austin's character kills Aaron's character. I really liked that scene just because I think it's a really funny way to show how incompetent these guys were in their attack. It's not coordinated at all. They're attacking her with baseball bats in the hope that they don't kill her so that they can kidnap her, but it's kind of just counterintuitive, so it's just kind of dumb. We then filmed the first fight scene and then moved on to the third. We then recorded a little interlude where she walks towards the curtain into the next room. That way we had that ready for the next time we filmed.
You're really not gonna say
At this point, we were moving along pretty fast, but we hadn't scheduled anything yet for our next day of filming. I was eager to continue. My last short film took almost 2 years to complete. But then in October 2024, I lost my dad. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. I took weeks off of work, and we had the funeral, and at kind of a grasp to have some normalcy, I scheduled the next filming day, sort of as just a way to distract myself and see my friends again and do something that I love and something that my dad really got me into. He loved movies. I have probably 1,000 DVDs of different movies that he's collected over the years, and we have VHSs in the basement and all this stuff, and he was my role model for movies and really formed my tastes in movies. Even though we didn't always agree on the movies and stuff like that, it was always just a joy to watch a movie with him because he would point out the littlest details of things that were wrong or missed, or he would be able to call plot points that were coming in the future, and he would call out plot holes and things like that, and it really helped with my writing and stuff like that because I would show him anything that I was writing or anything I was making, because he would point out, you know, this didn't make sense or this didn't make sense or whatever. I hope I made him proud with this movie, even though it might not be to his taste and the kind of movies he likes to watch. We started filming again as soon as November. My coworkers Christian and Milton had promised me they would come by, and we filmed some more. We filmed the next scene in the adjacent room where she gets chloroformed, but after this we didn't film again until July. Partially because the next easiest thing to film was outside in a park, and it was the middle of winter. The other reason was that I couldn't cast the main villain, who would be in all of the remaining scenes. I needed someone with range that could play evil and charming and dumb and all these things at once. I had a couple ideas of who to cast, but the other main issue is we didn't have a place to film all of the frat house scenes. The frat house scenes took up probably 60% of the script. I couldn't find anything for free, so I started looking at Airbnb, and the issue with Airbnb is that you have to have a perfect schedule. You have to have everyone who's going to be there available at that day, and even if you do it for a whole weekend, it's still hard to get everyone there. You had to hope that everyone who was committed to coming does come, and that no one gets sick, and there's a lot of stuff to go through. This ended up being impossible. I had pushed it back, and I had no luck finding somewhere good. And to make things worse, when we finally got around to filming something in July, everything kind of fell apart. Multiple actors canceled on me. This ended up leaving just me, Alex, and Austin to film everything in the park scene and the walk home and all of that stuff with no other actors that were supposed to be there. We persevered though. We rearranged some dialogue, and Austin, who previously had a smaller role, ended up being a bigger role in the script. But honestly, I was just ready to give up at that day. I was ready to go home and do nothing and just scrap the whole project. But Alex, Austin, and Kat helped me to push on, and they inspired me to try and finish it. After filming these scenes, it seemed like it was going to be okay again. We filmed the main plot points, and the story still came across. The reason I didn't want to give Austin a bigger role is because he was already the main character of 2 of my last projects. But Austin was always there for me, and he's the one who pushes me to do more, and without him, this project wouldn't even have been finished. I edited everything together and continued the story, trying to make everything make sense, rearranged the script a little bit, and everything seemed to be going okay. But, of course, there's always something else to throw a wrench into everything. One of my actors had to drop out for personal reasons. We only filmed 1 day with him, so it wasn't that terrible and we could rearrange things, but it was a pivotal role, so if we wanted to continue that role, we would have to reshoot things. Originally, this character was going to be second in command for the cults, and had a whole section of the story about him. And honestly, with no luck finding the place for the frat house, I decided to give up. The story stopped there for months. With how long the project had been taking, I had already started to create a novel based on the story. I started writing the story out in much more detail and finding things that I didn't originally think about when I was writing the script. But before I finished the novel, Austin and I discussed all of the hard work that we had put into the project already and everything that we've done, and it just felt a shame to lose all of it. We brainstormed some ideas and we found a way that we could salvage most of the stuff. The new story became Watching Lia, which is the short film that's out now. We changed the original idea of there being 1 bad date and changed it into 3. This would lead to a confrontation with all 3 guys where they attack her in the apartment. This allowed me to reuse a lot of the Tinder swiping footage and fight scenes and getting ready montages. The only thing left was to fill in the gaps. In November, I recut everything, and in December of 2025, we filmed 2 out of the 3 dates. The only issue is that Aaron didn't live in Chicago anymore. This resulted in some of the hardest VFX work I've ever had to do. I was being a really hard perfectionist, and it still even looks off to me, but I've had multiple people say that they would have never even have noticed, so I take that as a good thing. I recut the walk home and cut the dialogue, that way we can just hint at Austin following her home. This one hurt extra just because it was a good scene and the actors did such a good job. With the 2 dates edited in now, there were only 2 things left to film. We ended up only filming in 3 locations throughout the whole thing. But, Brendan, if you couldn't find 1 location for the date, and now you're doing 3 dates, how did you find 3 different locations? I didn't. We filmed all 3 dates in my house in just different corners. 1 at the dining table, 1 in the kitchen just standing up, and the other in the living room and bedroom. In February of 2026, we actually changed the script again to add a twist ending. The original ending was going to be very anticlimactic and just kind of end after the fights, so you'll have to watch the video to find out how we changed that. And then finally, in March of 2026, we filmed the last date scene. Over the next few months, I worked hard on different cuts, edits, VFX shots, sound design, and much more. Meanwhile, my buddy Christian, this guy, worked hard on music for the project. Finally, the project was completed in June of 2026. I released a trailer for the project to show everyone what it was about and give a little bit of a teaser. From scheduling issues and trouble finding locations and a bunch of hard work on VFX, it was a lot. And after my dad passed, I didn't even know if I wanted to continue working on anything. He really inspired me to make movies and do what I want to do, and I thank him so much for that, and I hope he's out there somewhere looking down on me. I don't think that this short film will blow anyone away or win awards or get any praise at all. It's just a fun storytelling exercise and hanging out with friends and making something that feels cool and enjoying the ride. It doesn't have any kind of deep message or anything like that, besides just don't trust douchey guys. But I think overall it was important for me to finish the project. That way I had something that I could look back on and be like, hey, I did it, I finished something. Even though it's not the typical kind of story that I would normally tell, or even the style of writing I would normally do, it was just fun to try those things out, and everyone involved gave it 110%. My next script is already finished, but there's a ton of work that needs to be done and ahead of time before that even gets started. Hopefully I complete it faster than the previous 2 projects. If you're interested in seeing what the original story was like, I do have a novel that I want to release of the original story. It's not super long or anything like that, but it's just a fun story about some crazy guys and a girl that has a hell of a night. So now, without further ado, there will be a link down in the description to watch Watching Lia, my newest project.